Hi. Okay, I'm going to take this. Okay. Good early afternoon. It's good to be here. I'm here and going to Washington, and I'm coming from meetings in the region and with the Palestinian president, to see how we get from where we are in the midst of a humanitarian nightmare and a total conflicted West Bank into a different course, and we need to set that course not by humanitarian means but by politics. I think there is a much more clear understanding and a process and a dynamic in the region that works on political issues, whether that is what comes after the ceasefire, how to keep a ceasefire going and not stopping, and also how to set up a system on the ground that can allow for a governance structure in Palestine that is strong enough to be in the midst of the day after discussions and in the midst of the day after cooperation with the international community. Why is this important? It is important because if that structure is not in place in a credible way, it would be the first time since the Oslo Agreement was signed that a part of Palestine would not be ruled by the Palestinians, even under occupation. So the principles need to be right. But going into Gaza, my humanitarian coordinator, Jamie McGoldrick, is there now for the 5th time in 5 weeks. What he's trying to do is to set up some key priorities for humanitarian delivery as for the time we will have a humanitarian ceasefire. At the moment, as the hostilities are ongoing, it is impossible for the UN system to deliver sufficiently and most effectively on the ground. To that, it is too busy. And we can actually not, at the moment, easily access the north of Gaza, given the conflict as it is. So that conflict needs a pause quickly. I commend all efforts now done by Egypt, by the Qataris and by the Americans to lock that into place. But I can tell you that this agreement on a lasting ceasefire will be incredibly difficult to set up because we will have to go into details of names and kind of arrangements that are not a quick fix whatsoever. So even if the framework is in place, the details need to be very carefully worked out. I'm here, as I said, to discuss with the permanent members of the Security Council and others, including the Secretary General, how we can chart a way out of this crisis and how we can do it with the parties on the ground. We know very well, and I know very well from my point of view, what are the impediments for this to happen politically. These impediments need to be overcome. And I can see that there is a lining up in the region, in Europe, and from the international community to see that happening. But it's not a quick fix, it's not an easy one, and it will take some very hard diplomatic work. So you're free to ask, please.
Thanks. Edie Letter, Associated Press.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wennesland, on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. The Secretary General warned this morning that an Israeli military move into Rafah could have both dire humanitarian and regional implications. Is anything being done that the UN is involved in to try and prevent the Israeli military offensive from moving south into Rafah, where there are more than 1 million Palestinians who've sought refuge?
For sure. There are two perspectives on what you were asking for. First, what is the UN doing when it comes to the communication of the impact of moving the war into the south? I mean, we know very well. The Israelis know even better, but still planning, that having a very active warfare in the area of Rafah with more than 1.2 million people assembled, and Rafah and Kerem Shalom being the entry point, at the moment the only one, actively, for humanitarian supplies, will be completely catastrophic. And that's the humanitarian perspective to it. And it is the perspective of allowing for supplies to get in, because we don't get it in from anywhere else. But there is a political aspect to that. And that is, and this aspect is now being dealt with, I think, proactively and intensively between Israel and Egypt. Because there are arrangements and agreements for Sinai and between the two parties when it comes to what you can do and not do along the Philadelphia corridor. I see no other way to get out of that than the two parties sitting and talking, and I am absolutely certain that this has been on the agenda for the Foreign Secretary's visit to Cairo and today in Israel. We have had the Sinai Agreement in place, and the Sinai Agreement will last. But that is why there need to be constraint here.
Thank you. James Bays, Al Jazeera.
James Bays from Al Jazeera. So the Secretary General, again, in his comments to the General Assembly this morning, talked about irreversible actions needed towards a two-state solution. But as you know, the current Israeli government, the current Israeli Prime Minister, don't believe in a two-state solution. Do you have a partner in this endeavour with Israel? And can I add to the question, perhaps, so we can get some idea of your sort of negotiating? We know the Secretary-General hasn't at any point spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister. So who from Israel is speaking to you? What's the highest level Israeli official that you are dealing with?
I'm speaking to members of the government. I mean,
Are you speaking to the Foreign Minister, the Defence Minister?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, because I mean, the Secretary
and the Minister for Strategic Planning. Yeah, for sure. I mean, come on.
Well, no, because the Secretary General can't get an audience with the Prime Minister, so that's why I'm asking the question.
And with the President. I mean, come on. Over the last couple of weeks, I mean, we are not sitting there kind of dreaming about a meeting that is not taking place. So yes, we do have these contacts and we do have this line of action. So, do we believe that there is a response in the Israeli system on the two-state solution? We know where we have the Prime Minister on this, and he is clear. We know that there are other voices in the Israeli political system that do have different opinions on this, and we know the very clear line charted out from US more clearly than ever I can remember on the principles of the two-state solution. So, how do you get all these elements into place? I mean, these talks are taking place. That's what I want to say. I am not focusing on what people are saying when they go public for the reasons they go public. What we have to do is to continue the talks on finding a charted way forward. That's why I'm talking to the members of the council on how the dynamic is here. That's what I want to go and talk to the teams, different teams in New York and in Europe over the next days and weeks, and the parties, both of them. I am very sure on one thing: the divide and the distrust that has come out of this conflict has made it necessary to look at the options that we thought were dead. I know that you didn't believe yourself in anything but a kind of one-state reality. I can tell you that one-state reality is in a way disappearing by the people moving apart from each other. I know there is a trend to make claims on land in the West Bank from the settler community. We know all about these things. But we also know that 150 to 200,000 Palestinians working in Israel are not going there anymore. Not only for the kind of prevention of them to cross by the Israelis, but because the scare factor after 7 October is so deep and goes so deep through the two different societies. I have not seen anything like this, and I've been in this kind of circuit since Oslo too. I never thought I would see it.
Ibtisam Azam.
Thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have first very quick follow-ups, and then the question. The follow-up is, you said that now you are here to see how to chart a way out of this crisis. Could you elaborate for us what's your exact vision, given the fact that a lot of stuff in the past didn't work? And another follow-up, did you visit Gaza since October 7th? If not, why not? And my question is, what's your message to the people of Gaza, where the majority of whom are displaced, live in tent, not even real tents? Why should they trust the promises and even the UN that something will change really on the ground for them? Thank you.
If I could start with your last comment. I mean, I can tell you, it's hard to find words on what to say to the people in Gaza that has lost everything, as they've lost everything and they've been exposed to a massive destruction. And I just want to tell that I have some very near friends for years that has been in the middle of this bombardment. They are in the medical areas, they work in hospitals, they lost all they had, and I'm talking to them more or less, not on a daily basis, but very frequently. I don't have words. I've lost it. It is very difficult to preach hope when you sit in a safe place to people that are sitting in the middle of what is hellish. And I think we should take a step back and not be too bold and think that the big words are what will make the big difference. What is making the difference is our ability to put our acts together smart and put the necessary pressure on the points that would trigger change. But I can tell you, I'm a little bit lost on this. Honestly, I am. How to charge a way forward. One, we cannot get out of where we are unless the ceasefire will start. That is the first point. That ceasefire comes as a result on agreement upon a change of hostages against prisoners. That dynamic will be able will give us the opportunity to kind of get into the areas of Gaza with deliveries that we have not been able to do so far. But you should be under no illusion. The humanitarian system is not designed and set up to carry the delivery of all goods into Gaza for 2.2 million people. We will not be able to have Gaza properly supplied unless there is a private sector delivery into the Strip. In order for that to happen, geography needs to be taken seriously. Geography has combined what is known Israel with Gaza for 3,000 years. You cannot just kind of delete that away and say we should do it differently. Geography is defining the options for the way forward in a much more clear sense than what has been accepted. It took us 1.5 months from the war started until the Israelis decided to open Kerem Shalom. It will take us the time it takes for us to reconnect Israel and Gaza, both from a political point of perspective and for the dynamics here. But we need that to happen. We never had hunger in Gaza because there is agricultural production. There is no place to grow tomatoes anymore in Gaza. Everything needs to go in, everything. And if we are not able to put up that everything delivery line in a credible way, and we cannot do it without the necessary means of getting in, whether that is vehicles, whether that is armored vehicles, whether that is communication equipment, whether it's kind of a meaningful degree of stopping military activities on the ground. Come on. I mean, I have had my most experienced savvy guys in my close protection team has been going in to Gaza, coming out seriously scared. And they've been out a very late night in very bad places before. So don't think this is a Sunday school operation. No, I'm going to Gaza the moment I return back. My humanitarian coordinator has been there now 5 times in 5 weeks. And it's not that I'm not going to Gaza. I've been in Gaza hundreds of times. But it is because of the job I'm doing that is not necessarily focusing on humanitarian delivery, but to get the framework for that in place by political decisions.
Abdelhamid, then Mike.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wennesland. My name is Abdelhamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. And I've been posing questions to you through my dear friend, Stefan. And I have probably 100 questions if I have the time to ask you. But I will try to summarize.
You don't have 100 questions, but
I'll try to have a few. Sir, on your report on 27 September, right before October 7, you warned the Security Council that Gaza, the situation in Gaza is unsustainable, and you warned there might be explosion in Gaza. They cannot continue like that. However, in your references, 7 October became the reference. No, as if nothing happened before 7 October. My question first, many questions. Why you didn't visit Gaza for the last 4 months when you are the most senior UN official in Gaza? Lazzarini visited 4 times, wow. Turk visited it, Catherine visited UNICEF, and others. But you, the one who are based there, you didn't visit Gaza to see for your own self what's happening, which is I know you know about it. The other thing, there are so many gruesome crimes committed right in front of the world eyes, like what happened in the hospitals, like what happened with the shelters, and destruction of a university in front of everybody's eyes. The other day, an attack on the hospital in Jenin with people, Israeli, dressed like nurses and doctors. Such a gruesome crime. And you were silent. You didn't issue any statement on this, just to pinpoint these standing out crimes, to talk about them and issue statements. I saw you visited the families of the Israeli hostages. You had the time to visit them, but you didn't visit Hawara with other 17 diplomats.
Okay.
And others.
Abdelhamid, I think we get the
and
two
my
questions.
last question.
Let's do
my
two
last.
Let's get two. We got 2 questions.
My last.
Let's just get 2 questions. Let Mr. Wennesland answer, and then we'll try to come back to you.
okay, the last time I was in Gaza was some very few days before the war started. My objective for the visit was to get Gaza reopened, because as you know very well, because you're following these things, it was closed. The labor market was closed. It was building up tension, and we needed to see whether we could take that down. So I went in with a proposal for consideration of Hamas to negotiate that opening of the labor market, and 2 days later, 16,000 people left Gaza to work in Israel. That was pre-negotiated, and the arrangement were in place with the Israelis. That's how I work. When then you get what is happening after, you don't really feel to be a successful diplomat, I can tell you, and I can assure you very well. But my work, when I go in to get things improved. I have not succeeded the last time, but I will succeed in getting it better. But now the field is totally crowded by the humanitarian issue. As I said, I will definitely go in, but my task and my thing is to get the political frameworks in place. That is why I've been on the road more or less permanently since this war started to see what we could get going. I've been focusing in the beginning on getting the Egyptian corridor opened immediately. I discussed that in Cairo with Abbas Kamal immediately after the war started. Then we went to Beirut and talked to the Iranians on looking at the north, and also to look at the hostage situation and provide to Hamas a very clear ask of the unconditional release. And I echoed the same ask from the Iranians the day before I came to them in coordination. This is my job. I can go and I can be in Gaza, and I will go and be in Gaza. I will get dirty on my shoes, but I know what my task is. Okay. When the statement, okay. I've done crisis communication many times, also in my Norwegian capacity. The first thing you have to do when you're hit by a tsunami, political tsunami, like we were on the 7th, you have to find out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You have to find out how you're going to communicate and how the system is going to take care of the overall communication. This has been a very well discussed line. If I should have gone into the type of detail I could have done before, and that I did before, under these circumstances, with the dynamics in Gaza and the dynamics, I would add, at the West Bank, and God forbid, I hope to avoid that to happen in Jerusalem during Ramadan. I hope we have a ceasefire before Ramadan, I can tell you flatly. I don't want to think about the consequences of that not happening. We need to focus on avoiding the nightmares. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mike, and then Yvonne.
So thank you for doing the briefing. I'm Mike Wagenheim with I-24 News in Israel.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your opening statement today the symbolic importance of ensuring that Palestinians will govern Gaza post-Hamas. Obviously, that goes back as well to your personal experiences. The Palestinian Authority, as it stands right now, is widely seen as discredited, as corrupt, as mismanaged. If you have a choice, you personally, you have a choice between the Palestinian Authority taking over post-Hamas Gaza without a popular mandate that they haven't had in years, or some confederation of Arab states, some other entity that could come in there and reconstruct Gaza. I mean, what do you see as a better avenue?
Politics doesn't work like this.
But you have an influence, and you have...
What I'm saying is the following. I mean, for sure, there is and has been a discussion between the Palestinian leadership and the regional partners, and it's ongoing, and I think that's very important. Secondly, we cannot have the authority we have today suddenly moving into Gaza these years after Gaza fell into the hands of Hamas in June 2007. Obviously, there will have to be made changes. But this is a part of the politics we need to address and need to try to fix. You cannot take static what you have and just move it as a chess element and plant it into a totally different context for which it cannot be seen as fit. Huh? So that is going in parallel to the talks on hostages and prisoner exchange. There is another line where we discuss how can we patch up and get the right structures in place for the whole of Palestine. Then there is another discussion, as you know very well, on how you get from where we are now into the possible element of the politics of a solution. All of these elements are difficult, and they're happening at the same time. And while it's happening, it's dynamic also in Israeli politics and in Palestinian politics that is impacting on all these things. But that is what's going on. That is why I'm rejecting to kind of just take what we have, smacking it on ground in Gaza and think it would work. Everybody knows it won't.
Second question for you, and it's brief. Who will you be meeting with in Washington?
Well, I have a program. I will tell you when I met with all of them, and I'm meeting at high level.
We have time for two more questions. Sorry, Yvonne and then Sylvia.
Yvonne Murray, RTE News, thank you for this briefing. After the ceasefire, will you be trying to ensure that the people displaced during this conflict can return home? And if so, how will you go about doing that?
There are, first of all, I know that on the Israeli side, there is a whole discussion of bringing their own displaced people to the north or to the envelope along the Gaza. So that's one part of the displacement thing. The other thing is in Gaza. The Gaza thing is superbly complicated, as I said to you in the beginning. We don't have, half of the houses in Gaza are gone. We actually, at the moment, are struggling to get reasonably good alternatives for them to get back. We don't know how much we need to do of cleaning of explosive ordinances. We don't know how to fix the road systems yet. We don't have all these in place. This will have to start working. It will take more than a year to clean Gaza for rubble. More than a year. Optimistically, I think 1.5. So, don't think about a quick jump into reconstruction of the nice villas. It won't happen. If we are not getting the conditions right to get started, meaning access, meaning equipment, meaning whatever means available, and a stable funding line, and the capacity to have enough people on the ground, this will take more time than we need. So, how do we gonna do it? We have the teams working. There is a rapid damage assessment done by the World Bank and the EU and the UN. I'm into that on the ground. We hope to see an interim report coming out of that in a fairly near future. But we know it's a daunting task. The figures look terrible. That's the best answer I can give to you. I'm sorry.
Sylviane.
Thank you for the meeting, the briefing. My name is Sylviane Zehil from L'Orient Le Jour Beirut. You mentioned Beirut in your, and you went to Beirut, to Lebanon. Did you speak with directly with the Hezbollah and to ensure the situation for the peace in the region?
Let me put it that way. In Beirut, I talk to everybody I would like to talk to.
Even
starting with the government and security apparatus, and all other meetings I ask for, I have, and I don't want to go into specifics.
Do you have more to say about it, about your visit in Beirut?
Well, for me, it has been very important to look at the dynamics between West Bank Gaza on the one hand, and the dynamics in Lebanon on the other, in particular among the different factions in Palestine. This I've been doing, and this has been the focus on my visits to Beirut. But obviously, the immediate aftermath of 7 October, the focus was slightly different.
Any danger to send Palestinians to Lebanon from Gaza?
Sorry?
Is there any danger to send from Palestinians from Gaza to Lebanon?
You mean organized?
No.
Thank you very much.
There's been some news while you've been in the news conference, if you don't mind. Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected Hamas's response as delusional and has said that Israel will now proceed with its military offensive in Gaza until total victory. Do you have a response to that?
No, for sure. I would have to kind of get the context of that statement in place, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.